Are you a manager who is eager to change the trajectory of your career? I have spent the last 23 years as a Fortune 50 leader learning from other industry leaders how to break free from limiting beliefs and habits. On the Might in Motion podcast, we focus on the 4 M's: motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. We bring you leaders from Fortune companies, doctors, and entrepreneurs. Their stories of living their own might in motion will inspire you to create your own action plan and achieve your goals. Welcome to Might in Motion.
Today's episode of Might in Motion is brought to you by Pantheon FM, Fortunes Magnified. Pantheon FM is changing the world through entrepreneurship. In this community, you will find everything you need to create, amplify, and monetize your world-changing business. Join us at pantheon.community/register/LAUA.
Jenna Banks is a business leader, speaker, and author of the best-selling book, I Love Me More: How to Find Happiness and Success Through Self-Love. She is also the host of the Jenna Banks Show, a video series featuring tips, tools, and expert advice to help you achieve your fullest potential, both in life and in your career. The series can be streamed on the Powerful Women Plus channel, available on Roku, Google Play, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and YouTube. Welcome to Might in Motion, Jenna Banks. I'm really excited to have you here today.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
You know, for a little known fact, we both are in Georgia. And so that's always exciting to me, is that I love being able to share the amazing people that live in this state. And you are one of them. You're truly an inspiration. And I can't wait to dive into a little bit more about how you help others.
Thank you.
First, can you give us a little bit about yourself, your path that took you from being a corporate leader to now a keynote speaker and a best-selling author?
Oh, thank you for asking. Yeah. I mean, there was a journey before getting to the point of being in corporate and entrepreneur, which is where I found success in my career. I talk about this in my book titled I Love Me More: How to Find Happiness and Success Through Self-Love, because I think, this show is for leaders. And I think a really good leadership trait to have is vulnerability. In transparency, right? And, we tend to think that it's a bit of a weakness. At least that's the old school thinking. But I think we've evolved today to understand more than that, with all the wonderful books and thought leaders and speakers that are out there, guiding the path for the future and what that looks like. And we're finding out more and more that just being vulnerable and transparent actually is a good leadership trait to have. So I was very, very vulnerable in my book. And I talk about my rough upbringing. I had a very tumultuous childhood, a lot of trauma that I had to overcome, a lot of self-doubt, issues with self-worth, and looking externally for my validation and my worth, right? And so that was my journey to go from seeking external validation, not even feeling worthy of anything, certainly not thinking I would be worthy of having a great career, because I didn't even go to college. I had so many issues that I was dealing with growing up. I was lucky to get out of high school with a GED like I did, and then got pregnant and married at 19. Became a divorced single mom at the age of 22, and the cards would appear to really be stacked against me. But you know what? I have a lot of motivation and a lot of positive. My attitude is very positive, especially since I was able to pull myself up by my bootstraps and overcome a lot of these hurdles that I had to get over. So I eventually found success in corporate pretty quickly. Actually, in my 20s, I rose quickly through the leadership ranks because of my natural abilities and my belief in myself, which formed at a very early age. And then I started my own company. When I later sold that so I started a business in 2012 and sold that in 2019 for $500,000. Which was a home-based business. So I was pretty happy with that. I sold that right before the pandemic. And then now here I am today. After having sold that business, I chose to get into helping inspire and motivate others. I really wanted to become a speaker, face that fear I had of public speaking, because I knew I had a story to share, a message to share, and really wanted to help inspire others. So I got over that, got some good training under my belt, and here I am now as a published author, speaker. I also do a lot of moderating. I've got my show, of course, and just really love this new stage of my life.
That's so exciting. You mentioned at the beginning that you had a lot of things stacked against you, but your positive outlook is what really was that thread throughout it all.
Yeah.
So many times people can just fold under that negativity. Are there tips or tricks or things that you did, or was it just a natural positivity that you happen to have had?
Yeah, I always had a natural positive outlook on things. But I'm also, the way my brain works, I just notice patterns, and I noticed that the negative thinking didn't get me anywhere. And positive thinking did. I didn't have any research behind it, or no one to back up this way that I thought, or to validate it. That was just what I went with. And it worked for me. So yeah, I always maintain a positive outlook.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so key, even just to wake up in the morning and have moments of gratitude.
Yeah.
And even taking the time before, for example, for me, before a big meeting or something that I am maybe stressed out about, and I think, oh, this is going to be awful. Wait, no, that's an opportunity to twist that, change it, and actually say, this is going to be a positive outcome. It's going to be a positive meeting. It's going to be a positive time on stage, right? And lo and behold, guess what? That's what happens, right?
That's right.
It's that pattern. You're creating a pattern in your life just by speaking it into existence.
I've come to learn that mindset is everything.
Mm-hmm.
It is everything. I've got this MacGyver kind of attitude about things.
We love MacGyver in my household.
Do you? Oh my God. Did you guys watch the newer
No, we have gone back in time and we are watching the original MacGyver of my youth.
Oh,
and
so
my
cool.
girls love it. They are 7 and 10. And now
Well,
they
you
play
know what?
MacGyver in the backyard. I'm down for that.
That's great. Actually, that is good for them to see that kind of thinking where, hey, if you set your mind to it, you can get it done. You can use the paper clips and the gum and the nickel in your pocket to figure out the solution. That's literally my mindset. If there's a problem, I never go to the negative, which is, oh no, fretting and worrying and being distraught over the situation. Instead, my mind instantly goes to what's around me. What can I do to fix this? I've got something. And you just know that you can resolve the issue. Or if it's something on your computer, okay, great. I can go on Google and type for this thing and find this thing and have it sent to me. There's got to be a way to resolve this. And you know what? It almost always is fixable.
Yeah, that's so true. Now, you talk a lot about self-love, that personal power, and powerful leadership. What does powerful leadership really mean? Can you give us the mini bite of what that means?
Oh, that's a great question. So this is a new talk I just started getting out there. So powerful leadership is about embracing our masculine and feminine tool sets.
Nice.
To be in our full power. So I'll give you a quick example. We all know, and this has nothing to do with gender, by the way. We have both masculine and feminine within us all, each and every one of us. And I'm sure we all know of people who, men who are a little more effeminate, right? And women who tend to be a bit more masculine. And what that might look like is, let's say in leadership, a woman who leads into her masculine, which are a lot of us, myself, used to be myself as well, but now I'm aware of it. It could look like being overly focused on achieving, goal setting, maybe a lack of empathy or a lack of collaborating, relying on others for help. That's the feminine. The masculine is just getting it done, right? Being super driven, super focused, And logical, that's another trait of the masculine. It's another masculine tool set. Very decisive, right? And look, masculine, we've got our healthy masculine and then we've got our toxic masculine. And we've got our healthy feminine, we have our toxic feminine. The healthy feminine would look like, tapping into creativity, collaborating, not being so, focused on getting the goal done that you're like, okay, I have to do it all myself because no one can do it right like me. But no, focusing on asking for help when you need it, letting others contribute. Relational is a trait of the feminine as well. The feminine is very highly relational. So focusing on relationships. Intuition. Talk about that in my book a lot. Intuition is a big one. I feel like I became a powerful leader when I learned to tap into my feminine, because I was too in my masculine. I had that down. All my role models in business were men. I worked under men my entire career until I worked for myself. So I had to learn to tap more into my feminine. And that's when I became what I feel is a more powerful leader. And today, I get the beautiful opportunity to moderate day-long summits or multi-day summits for corporations or associations and talk with leaders who are in the C-suite on a consistent basis. And it's a really unique opportunity and perspective that I get to learn from these C-suite leaders and to see a pattern, right? That's how my brain works, is I notice patterns. And the pattern I'm seeing today is that more men than ever are learning that they need more soft skills. More empathy, more collaboration, learning psychological safety so they can create psychological safety for their team. So more voices can be heard and it can be more inclusive, right? We hear that a lot, diversity and inclusion. In order to embrace that, you have to know how to have everyone feel like they belong, right? And another one is emotional intelligence. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of introspection, really being able to understand your emotions and how to work with them and how to respond instead of react emotionally. So really knowing yourself is a big part of leadership today. So it's that balance, right? I mean, we all know what the masculine looks like in business. We emulate, everyone emulates that, men and women, but really leaning in a balanced way into our feminine, men and women, I think is that way to create that powerful leadership today.
I love that, because sometimes, when you're corporate America, I've been in corporate America for over 2 decades, you get branded as, an alpha female.
Yeah.
And when you start making that pivot of, hey, I bring so much more to the table than just that masculine side of me, it's amazing what you can do to create teams. I like it. I call it moving it from chaos to community. So, and I can step into a team environment and it's all this interfighting and who's the big and the baddest and right? Like, and you can take it to a community where everybody's there to try to actually work with each other and help each other. It's amazing how much you level up an organization.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. And you know what? In this era of AI, where everyone's scared for their jobs, I'm hearing this as well in these various summits and conventions that I'm going to. A lot of people are scared for their jobs and scared about the future and what should they be doing. And I don't think the answer is more hard skills. I think the answer is more the soft skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because even as a direct report, people actually seek out leaders, right? Everybody's heard the saying, oh, people don't leave jobs, they leave their leaders, or leave bad leaders.
That's right.
All that stuff. But you can also attract really strong teams by how you lead. And many times new leaders, I think that's where they stumble the most. They have been rewarded for being a fantastic individual contributor.
That's right.
And now they're having to make this pivot. Is there anything that you would recommend to a new leader on how to make that pivot in a graceful way?
I just literally had this conversation with someone a couple of days ago. She was telling me about a former boss who was a get it done person. I'd never heard of the acronym GID before GIT, but get it done. And she made her way through the corporate leadership ranks to an EVP role, but she had a really bad reputation of doing whatever it took to get it done, which made her a really wonderful individual contributor. But she would have her teams working on Sundays till midnight with babies crying in the background and people falling asleep on the Zooms, and like no empathy and emotional intelligence there to understand that this was not okay. And this was not a way of being a great leader. And in the end, people were scared. They didn't want to work for her. In fact, they were willing to take demotions to go below her so they didn't have to work under her. That is not good leadership. So I hope that serves as an example of what not to do, because we may be achieving as individual contributors with this get it done attitude, but that is not going to work entirely in leadership. Now, you still want to get it done, but you've got to start to add to your skill set these soft skills of now it's not you anymore, it's the team. And so what does it take to manage a team? Employee retention is a huge thing for companies, right? And talent acquisition, and then talent retention is huge. So if you can help your employer retain their employees, then you got to learn how to manage people well and to be that leader that people ask to work under, that they could learn from you, right? And so that takes learning all new skill sets. So I would recommend join a group if your employer doesn't offer one already, whether it's and maybe they do, maybe they have an internal ERG group. There are women's leadership ERGs. There's different type of ERGs within your company if it's a large company. And if not, maybe they offer some type of personal development comp, annual comp. I know a lot of companies do that. Maybe that's $1,000, a couple thousand. Use that to join an organization that offers these skill building activities, and where you can network with peers that are at your level or higher than you, so that you're constantly learning best practices from a community that's focused on the same kind of mission as you, right? I think that's super important. So if you're an entrepreneur, join one that's for entrepreneurs. If you're in corporate, join one that's for corporate. And if you're a woman, even better to perhaps join a women's organization, but I still think it's important to learn from men. So I just say, keep building your skill set.
You should always be in a state of learning, regardless of if you're an entrepreneur or if you're in corporate. Learning isn't just, how do I write in Python, or how do I do this in BigQuery, or how do I learn AI to automate, my roles. It's also, how do you better interact with others? How do you create a group that you can bounce ideas off of around things like, how do I handle this situation or that situation? Because you want varying opinions.
And that's psychological safety. How do I create an environment that has psychological safety? There's books on that. You can go on YouTube. There's speakers who speak about that. You can find information for free or $10 in a book if you want to really learn about that. But yeah, psychological safety is a big one for leaders today.
Why do you think it's so hard for, leaders that maybe don't have that in their skill set to even recognize that they don't have that in their skill set?
I would imagine like taking a look at employee feedback, if you get that. I know a lot of companies today do that. So your surveys will tell you where you need to work. And then also, hopefully your higher up, whoever you report to, in their feedback for you, your annual review or whatever, usually it'll come to light in that. But there's also tests you can take online. And you know what? I should know this. And you know what? This is going to remind me. I need to get out there and know all the little tests that are available to send people to for resources, because we should know our gaps, right? Especially if we have a goal of becoming EVP or getting to the C-suite or whatever it is. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And you're right. There are so many books, there's so many podcasts, there's so many opportunities for you to go and learn. And people are turning in today because they know, hey, I can come here and I can learn some new nugget that I can now go take back to my day-to-day life and be able to learn more, from you or from me, for other guests, which is awesome. So Jenna, you do have your television show. Tell us a little bit more about that and where people can find it and what's it all about.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm all about helping people live to their fullest potential. Why? Because that's what I'm about too. So it's kind of a little bit of selfish reasons that I have certain guests on as well, because I get to learn from them too. And I
Yeah.
think, well, hey, I'm all about living to my full potential. And if you relate to me and my outlook and my style, then of course, whoever I have on the show, you'll probably get something out of as well. So, like I'm just now filming season 3. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm my last 2 guests. One was it was about trauma bonding, which is kind of
Mhm.
a hot topic in that psychological space. Dr. Nadine Macaluso, she was the ex-wife to the Wolf of Wall Street. So she was the
Wow.
one that Margot Robbie played her role, the
Mhm.
role of her in that movie. But so it was really cool to get her perspective, and she's been great. This is my second time interviewing her for the show because her book just came out. And trauma bonding, I think, is something we should all be aware of, and
Yeah.
narcissists and what that is, and how we get into these crazy relationships, and so there's that guest that I recently had on, and then just yesterday I interviewed Dr. Anna oh my goodness, I'm going to butcher her name. Cabeca, Cabecca, Anna Cabeca. She is one of the leading experts in hormones
Hmm.
and this change in our. So my show is mostly geared towards women, if you can't
Right.
tell already, but the hormone shift that happens for us, right? When we hit our 40s and 50s, actually you can start shifting, your hormones can start shifting in your late 30s. So, insights into that, like the things I wish I knew before it started happening for me, and
Right.
all the ways that we can live to our full potential through this next phase of our life, and understand what to look for and what we can do to live our best lives. So that kind of is a little sample, but I'll get into things like, neuroplasticity and nocebo plus placebo, and just things that are not commonly known pieces of advice or wisdom that can really help us in our day to day.
I love that. I mean, I really really resonates with me where you said that you used to have this TV show because it helps you.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to interview these people. I'm the same way with this podcast. So it's like, oh,
Nice.
I'm really interested. I want to learn. I want to grow. And here's a great way for me to do it.
Yeah.
It's a little selfishness, but it's okay to be
Yeah.
selfish. We talked about self-love earlier, right? Like
Yes.
you have to pour into yourself. I think that expands your bucket and your ability to pour into others when you do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and I love that you're broaching topics that, for me, as a woman who's already in that phase of her life, being able to have different pieces of information, avenues to get information is huge.
Huge.
And I think people talk about it more now than our mother's generation did. Right?
Yeah, that was literally the last question I had for her. I was like, is this still a really taboo subject? Because I feel like it
Mhm.
is. I'm the one to broach the subject in with friends or anyone else. For me, when I learn something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a sponge. I soak it up and then I want to share. And
Yeah.
if my own journey can help in some way, great. I'm happy to share. I'm like an open book. But I realize that so many people, like, they aren't comfortable talking about it unless you start talking about it, and then it opens them up.
Right.
And I wonder if, in this hyper masculine kind of society where we have rewarded that masculine energy, especially in business, where it's like, performance is everything, survival of the fittest, and you don't want to show any weakness. I maybe that has to do with a little bit of
Mm.
reason why we don't want to be so transparent with this journey, because it might make us seem weak,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we all go through it.
That's right. And I find that for myself as a leader, and you mentioned it earlier about having some vulnerability and transparency, when I have that with my team, then they're going to be more inclined to have that with me.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal, because when you can create that, it's amazing. You create these ride or die teams where people are like, no, I'm all in.
I love that, Mariana, that you mentioned that. It is so true. It's almost the opposite, right?
Mhm.
That of what we've been doing. We've been taught to believe that by showing our vulnerability and being transparent with our own struggles and our own weaknesses, or moments of struggle, that it makes us seem weak and not good leaders. But I think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I think when you show your vulnerability, it allows your team to feel safe and safe to share, and that they belong, and that you're not up here and someone to be feared, but that I call it more of a power with than a power over, right? You want to empower everyone to be empowered. You don't want to be this, again, that's that old patriarchal hierarchical structure that we're still very much in. It's, oh, I'm in this powerful position, I'm your boss and you're my employee. No, we should be there to empower them and be at the same level, power with, right?
I think when you have that with mindset, it encourages your team to actually lift you up, right?
Yeah.
So when my boss comes to me with that type of mindset and community feel, I want to do everything I can to lift that person higher. They hit their numbers, they get all the kudos, right? Because you feel like you're part of something greater. But when you have that power over, it's like, well, why?
You might have people trying to knock you down. That happens
all the time.
Right? So if you want to be in this position of power, you better bet people are going to come after you and want to knock you off that pedestal. So it's just a better position to be in overall. It's more heart than head. So that's that, again, powerful. You want to use your head, the logic, the masculine side. The mind is the masculine, the heart is the feminine, and it's the balance between the two. You obviously still want to be that decisive leader, the one that can set the pace, set the tone that everyone follows, but you also want to crowdsource the knowledge and the wisdom and let them feel like they're contributing to the overall health of the unit, the department, the company. You want to raise them up and raise their voices. And that's a great leader.
This has been such an exciting conversation that I've really, really enjoyed, Jenna. If people are interested in reaching out to you, learning more about you, what's the best place for people to go?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for asking. It's just my website, which is jenna-banks.com. Actually, you can now get there by jennabanks.com, which redirects to jenna-banks.com. But on there's links to everything: my book, my speaking, facilitation and moderating, the show, all my social channels, etc. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that.
That is awesome. I always like to write notes, my little golden nuggets that I write down. And so I just want to recap some of the ones that really resonated with me, Jenna, during this conversation.
Okay.
So it started off with having the conversation about vulnerability and transparency. And that's the key for being a good leader, because when you start that, you open up that opportunity of that two-way space of vulnerability. It really helps elevate the team. And that there is a benefit when you move from external validation to internal validation, so that you can really pivot as an individual and be able to go after the things that you truly enjoy. We talked a little bit about negative thinking, and that it doesn't get you anywhere. And so when you follow the pattern of positivity and positive thinking, you can actually start creating more positivity and more of that positive momentum in your life. In the middle, we talked about the feminine versus the masculine, and how you actually want to have that balance. And when you're able to create that balance as a leader, especially as a female leader, it really creates this cool opportunity to elevate your team and your organization. So you're balancing that head and that, those very specific rigid goals with the heart, and creating that community within your team. And then we also talked about MacGyver, which is also very, very important, because it's always great to MacGyver any situation. And you talked about MacGyvering your mindset, where when you get in a funk or in a space where there's some of that negative creeping in, you actually look around, to figuratively and literally to figure out what can you fix around you, what tools do you have around you, what's that, the pack of chewing gum, the rubber band, etc., that you can actually go and MacGyver yourself out of that negative mindset and into a more positive situation. And that when you do these things that we talked about, and you start implementing these things in your career and in your team environment, you can actually create an environment where there's a power with, not a power over your team. And that with allows you to really elevate everyone within the organization. So this was just a really cool conversation, Jenna. Lots of things that I'm going to take back with me, and I know our listeners will also take with them. So thank you again for your time today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I have to say, you are better than ChatGPT at summarizing. So that's awesome. I need a brain implant with what you just did in my brain. Thank you so much for having me, though. A delightful conversation.
Yes. And you know what? I've got a job security, right? We talked about that too. You know, I'm not going to be afraid of ChatGPT because apparently I've got a sparkly pen. And that's all anybody really needs in life is a sparkle pen.
I love it.
Thank you for tuning into Might in Motion. If you learned something about motivation, momentum, mindfulness, or might, please like, comment, and share. Thank you.